Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I want to tell you all about my show, the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we do a thorough analysis on the biggest issues and trends within the pro wrestling industry. We talk a lot about pro wrestling media, we talk a lot about fan culture and wrestling's place within general pop culture, and we talk about the broader influences that are shaping the way we discuss and analyze the pro wrestling industry. We've had some of the brightest minds in the pro wrestling intelligentsia on the show, including WrestleNomics host Brandon Thurston, both Rich Craich and Joe Lanza from the Flagship Wrestling Podcast, Trevor Dame from the Through the Years podcast, and a whole lot more. This isn't a show for hot takes. It's not a show recapping the latest episode of television. This is a show focusing on the biggest topics in pro wrestling and doing a deep dive on the real stories behind the surface level analysis you might find elsewhere. The Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, and we'd really appreciate it if you gave us a try. Thanks.
How do you feel when you switch to Geico and save on your car insurance? It's like going to work on one Thursday morning and thinking to yourself, just one more day until Friday. But then somebody in the elevator says, Happy Friday! Then you check your phone quickly and discover today is actually Friday. So yes, Happy Friday, random stranger in the elevator. Happy Friday indeed. Yep, switching and saving with Geico feels just like that. Get more with Geico.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Stars tonight together. Here everyone is singing.
Hey everyone, it is Mike. I'm here on Monday morning, September 9th, 2024. It's about 11 Fort Worth time. If you're a regular VoiceGate listener, you probably have an idea what's going on, as this episode is pre-recorded. We did this episode Saturday afternoon talking about King of Gate and Final Gate. And the reason why I'm on here is because, of course, time has passed since that episode, and there is some breaking Dragongate news. It was announced at 9 p.m. Kobe time, so this was about 3 hours ago. Big Boss Shimizu has been suspended due to a suspicion of serious breach of contract. He has been suspended indefinitely. The Triangle Gate titles have been vacated ahead of Final Gate. And, of course, Saturday, we thought that the Final Gate, Triangle Gate match was going to be the Natural Vibes champion team, Strong Machine J, Shimizu, and UT, defending against Z-Brats, Kai, Ishin, and Yoshiki Kato. Well, that Z-Brats team is still a part of the match. Naturally, Natural Vibes has been pulled from that, and the new vacant Open the Triangle Gate Championship match has them go up against Paradox's BB Hulk, Yokosuka Susumu, and Kagatora. As this has been basically 3 hours, I don't have my own reporting to add to this, and we will be back. Actually, later this week, we talk about this on the show. I will be back about Thursday-ish, cases on assignment, and I'll be doing a bit of a mini solo show. Of course, when I thought I was doing the show, it was going to be talking about the remainder of the Final Gate card and also a bit on Stalker Chikawa ahead of his retirement next week. But obviously, if more news comes out about Big Boss Shimizu, I'll bring it to y'all there. So expect that show on Thursday. And without any other further ado, here is the first episode of Open the Voice Gate for this week. Case and I talking about King of Gate, the return of Yoshiki Kato, and Final Gate in the card that we have. Did a bit of a preview, but of course I'll be back on Thursday to break down all of the newly announced matches and if there's more Shimizu news, as well as we're going to spend some time talking about the career of Stalker Chikawa on Thursday. But have a good rest of your week. I will be back with you then. Enjoy the episode. Bye. Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for December 7th, 2024. It is the weekend edition of your friendly neighborhood Open the Voice Gate. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can find us on social media at Open Voice Gate. If you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red boxes that sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a reoccurring or one-time donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside, as always, with our co-host, Case Lowe. In case I'm immediately going to get us off on something here. I did not expect, moving back to my hometown, how much my life has been impacted by TV productions that are happening in Fort Worth.
Okay, what's filmed there? Because we've got the Chicago Fire and PD and Med shows here, and I don't mean to besmirch anybody, but Chicago Fire has been on the air a long time now, and they filmed in all parts of the city, and yet it feels like when Chicago Fire is filming out in the public, people act like John Lennon and Paul McCartney are hanging out, and I don't quite understand it.
So, how familiar are you with Taylor Sheridan?
Not familiar at all.
So, of course, he is from the Kirk Sutter lineage, going from The Shield, Sons of Anarchy. He was an actor on Sons of Anarchy. He wrote the film Sicario a long time ago, like 5-10 years ago. But he's now more known for the Yellowstone series.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. He is a native Texan who ended up just kind of making it. I've seen his that there's been critiques on Sheridan verse shows as conservative media, but what it really is the next evolution of the Kirk Sutter Shield vein. He's the heir to that throne, but he's been filming around here nonstop. The TV show Landman takes place partially in Fort Worth, but more so, he's been filming something called The Madison with Matthew McConaughey. That's supposed to be the Yellowstone heir after that goes off the air. They have shut down downtown Fort Worth and the area around downtown Fort Worth nonstop for the last 2 weeks filming the show. And it's supposed to take place out in Wyoming, but they use Fort Worth for it. If I was as production minded as I was, your guy would be trying to grip and hop in on that. But it's wild how my life somehow is now still impacted by TV production.
Is Landman, that's with Billy Bob Thornton, right?
Yes, and he's amazing in it. Landman rules. Landman.
Okay, interesting. So you've seen the scene where his TV daughter talks about getting railed in front of him?
Yes, yeah. So Landman is a TV show that talks about petroleum management in West Texas. Part of it takes place in Midland, but part of it takes place in Fort Worth. John Hamm's in the part in Fort Worth, and it's like a weird synchronicity with my upbringing, seeing these shows and all of this. I'm convinced because since it was all filmed in Fort Worth, Billy Bob's all over the place. Billy Bob does sets at local saloons.
I love this. If you see him, please tell him that I'm a huge fan of the movie Mr. Woodcock, and I think it's perhaps the most underappreciated 2000s comedy.
Absolutely. But the scene where he plays a petroleum management, he gets his high school senior daughter flown in for spring break. The line is about her stance on birth control, and do I want to be the one who says the line, Case, or do you want to?
I'm not going to say it.
It is about they all pull and pray. We'll just do it that way. And just the look on Billy Bob Thornton's face, and he says, "I'm getting a Dr. Pepper," is some of the best line reading possible. And the wild thing about this is that the actress who plays his daughter, who's supposed to be in high school, she's 30.
So I see this scene out of context, and I
Sure.
hear this TV daughter talking the way she is. I go, son of a bitch, I gotta watch this show. This is, of course, not a horny podcast, but I'm thinking, my God, do I have to check this out? And I had not, because I assumed that the rest of the show was terrible. But if you're telling me it's all right, then I might have to give this a look.
Did you ever bother with Sons of Anarchy?
No, the aesthetic of that show was so just aggressively not my thing that I've never really had
Fair.
interest in it.
Fair. What about The Shield, though?
Okay, so The Shield I have not seen, but I have a lot of people in my life that are super pro Shield, and it is.
As am I. I'm one of those people.
Okay, so the issue that I'm having right now in my television world is, I obviously live with my girlfriend, and our thing is we really like ending our day with 1 hour of TV with each other, and we just wrapped up Gilmore Girls and subsequently the Gilmore Girls Netflix reunion, which was just absolutely abhorrent. And so we've kind of been bouncing around different reality shows. We like the Gordon Ramsay verse, so there's a new Hell's Kitchen season that we're watching right now, and then we like doing the Old Kitchen Nightmares. But we're struggling finding a scripted show to watch because as I'm staring at my copy of TV, the book by Alan Sepinwall, really enjoy prestige television. And she could not care less about what Alan Sepinwall thinks about television. So, she's not into Sopranos. She's not into The Wire. She doesn't want to watch Breaking Bad. I suggested The Shield. She said, what's that? I tried to explain it to her. She said, absolutely not. I don't want to watch that. And so I do feel like I am missing a little bit of the prestige TV diet from my life right now, and The Shield, unfortunately, is a victim of that.
Yeah, like FX kind of becoming like peak TV and kind of becoming like a certain vein of it. I've really have enjoyed revisiting over the last few years because Kings and I, it's not that like a lot of the shows that like our intersection is trash TV, to be frank.
Yep.
Like I watch a lot of just like prestige. I watch like we famously the #1 wrestling podcast for Barry. Like that's the kind of things that I'm more into. Her favorite show right now, scripted right now, is The Sex Lives of College Girls.
Okay, big fan of season 1. Have not seen the subsequent seasons.
She's been, and I think this is a thing about being with your partner and cohabitating and figuring out your TV diet. You end up watching a lot more of that kind of stuff. A show that is a new show that we've really enjoyed. It's an ABC show of all things. High Potential is a really good procedural drama.
Is that with the girl from It's Always Sunny?
Caitlin Olsen, yes.
Yeah, sorry, that was demeaning. I couldn't think of her name, but I knew you would know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, viewers, if you have the ability to watch this, take it out for a spin. It's worth it. It's on Hulu. If you are a Hulu subscriber, or you can go get like an antenna or download it. I don't know. ABC doesn't pay me. Just watch High Potential. It's a fun show.
Good. Okay. I'm glad we're caught up on TV. Can I throw one wrestling thing at you that isn't Dragongate related before we talk about a ton of Dragongate?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay. First of all, thank you. I don't think we've talked since the Ricochet interview came out. Thank you to everybody who watched the Ricochet interview. Of course, Fightful did aggregate the interview last night, and they aggregated the single least interesting part of the interview in which Ricochet compared wrestling to anime. Also, if you're new here and a new fan from my appearance on Vince Russo's Castrating the Marks podcast, maybe you saw it on Vince Russo's Twitter feed, or of course, Al Snow's Twitter feed, because Al Snow retweeted the account that was highlighting Vince Russo slandering me in my Tony Khan interview. Welcome to the show. So now that that's all out of the way, Mike, I started thinking about this earlier this week, and I can't stop thinking about it. I was listening to a Between the Sheets episode from earlier this year where they were covering wrestling from June 2014, which is very much in my sweet spot.
Yeah, that is our full wheelhouse, I would say.
I loved it. A really enjoyable episode of Between the Sheets. It's the full Between the Sheets listening experience, if you know what I mean. So they're talking about Impact. And they mentioned that Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards are on Impact at the time, and that, despite all of the sins that promotion, inflicted upon themselves over the years, they really did try to make a big deal out of signing and then presenting Davey and Eddie. And I started thinking about how weird it is that Eddie Edwards is still a professional wrestler who wrestles regularly, who has absolutely no value or clout in our bubble of wrestling media. And it's hard to explain. Like, if you if you found out about wrestling through, let's say there's this magical person that found out about wrestling through AEW, they know what Ring of Honor is.
Sure.
They have seen New Japan. They have at least heard of Noah. It would be so hard to explain to them that that guy on the Impact roster, if AEW would have started 10 years earlier, would have been a shoo-in for that promotion and would have been pushed heavily.
Yeah, like it just with like the way that the decade went. I mean, other than and like weirdly, like during like the DGUSA series, we encountered this like recording it through 2020 2021. You talk like a lot of speaking out stuff that we kind of encountered throughout it. Out of like people who did not, you know, speaking out and like this, has anyone really like without doing anything like socially wrong or massively illegal has fallen like out of the frame of reference as hard as Eddie Edwards has over the last decade?
That's the perfect way to describe it. It's so weird to me that he's still wrestling. He's on TV.
His wife's wrestling with him too.
Of course. And the last time that he had any sort of name value in our bubble was when he was GHC heavyweight champion. And even that was, I think that was 7 years ago now. That was a long time ago.
And that was excellent. That was a great run.
It was awesome because it was
no match.
Exactly. And now it's just, he looks like a different human being. I don't get the impression. Now, granted, I'm not exactly up to date on my Impact Wrestling viewing. I was actually talking to somebody last night about the good wrestlers that are in Impact and how I have zero desire to ever watch them in Impact. Sorry, Garrett Kidney. But, he's been a TNA, Impact, Global Force Wrestling, etc. wrestler for 10 years now. And so he missed the super indie boom of the mid 2010s. He was out of PWG. By the time Dave started going to shows, he'd never worked New Japan. He's just sitting on this island watching ships pass him by, and it is so weird to think about.
And I would say the one thing that he kind of was able to do is, as someone who has always been Northeast based, he would show up to your Beyonds, your Limitless, your Chaotix, but it was not like at a time where, other than Beyond, he was at Beyond like too early and then was already off like at that point. He did not like appear in like indies or stuff like this, other than like the weird vanity bookings that Impact people got, and like it would be like, oh yeah, we somehow have Jesse Sorensen here. Like there was a lot of indie bookings that had that. With the exception of him working in the Northeast, that was all you could really see him at, I felt like, over that time period, unless you were following Pro Wrestling Noah and his run over that GHC heavyweight title run, which was excellent. Which was wasn't there like a Brian Cage match that was great too?
I was trying to piece that together in my mind if there was a Brian Cage Eddie Edwards match. I that sounds right because we're both thinking it. It's also funny you say Jesse Sorensen, because my first Ring of Honor show that I attended was the one time they booked Jesse Sorensen, and they made a really big deal out of it. And then he wrestled Tommaso Ciampa in an era where Ciampa was very good. It had kind of just gotten very good, but was definitely like that era of Ring of Honor. I remember thinking he was going to be a very big star for that promotion. Mm-hmm. And Sorensen fucking bombed. He was atrocious, and the match with Ciampa was endless. If I remember right, they put that match on before intermission, and then everybody went to intermission and it just had to, sift through the DVD sale quietly because of the abhorrent match that we just watched. I will also note, before I throw it back to you, Beyond Wrestling probably doesn't have any sort of national name value without Eddie Edwards, because the first time, and we talked about this on the Dragongate USA series, because I just put together that spreadsheet with all of our Dragongate USA shows and all of our Rewind and Rewatch shows and the Grand Hamada show. There's links to all of those shows now in the Voices of Wrestling Discord on one nice and neat spreadsheet. And July 2013 was the first Beyond Wrestling American Rana show, and it was Kevin Cena Masada and Eddie Edwards and Biff Busick. Those were the two big matches on that show. And that Eddie Edwards Biff Busick match was a really big match and a really great match. And that was right after Beyond had moved from Cleveland, where they used to be set up, to Rhode Island. And for a lot of people like myself, that was the first time Beyond Wrestling ever mattered to anybody. And it's by and large due to Eddie Edwards.
Yeah, you immediately got me thinking about, oh, I really liked Tommaso Ciampa before he ended up in NXT.
Oh my
Like,
God. There's a period of, and like, myself and Sean Cedar are probably the only two people that really look back fondly on a certain era of Sinclair own Ring of Honor, that 2013 to 2015 time period. But there's a point in time where I thought Ciampa in 2014 was going to be the next Ring of Honor world champion and was going to be this really big deal for the promotion. I watched him and Elgin have a match in Chicago Ridge, and this was when Elgin was. It was right before his first public meltdown, and before
right before Minor League Baseball Gate. Yes.
Exactly. I mean, literally, like right before. And he and Elgin had a match in Chicago Ridge that is one of my favorite live matches I've ever seen. They beat the ever-loving shit out of each other.
Mhm.
Kind of one of those where, I know on camera it translated, but being in the building, you're like, oh my God, these guys are really beating each other up. And then after that, they did this horrible, like, loose cannon type angle with Ciampa. And I remember that was in August of 2014. And at Final Battle, he had a match that year. I don't remember who he wrestled, but the crowd was so dead for him. And I remember thinking, like, man, they just pissed away all of this potential with this guy. And then he was out shortly after that. But in the spring and summer of 2014, you felt like, oh, this guy could be Ring of Honor champion. And then by Final Battle that year, it was just completely out the window.
And like the funny other thing about Ciampa is you correspond that also he was someone doing a lot of really good work in PWG in 2014,
yes,
in 2015.
Because they brought in him and Biff and Uha all kind of at the same. Like, all of a sudden, they had these heavyweights in there, and there's a 4-way match that it was those guys. It was Ciampa, Biff, Uha, and Brian Cage. And in 2024 eyes, it might just be eye roll inducing. Like, I don't know if that match holds up great, but in 2014, that was a very cool 4-way match.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, at least, like when I think about Ciampa, I think about the PWG stuff, and maybe that was because I got to go to PWG at that time, and how he had at least, and this wouldn't have carried over to Ring of Honor whatsoever, but the rest of the indies, like before it got all annoying, the crowd cheering along and singing along to Psycho Killer was a top tier indie entrance for that time.
That was good stuff. I completely forgot about that. That was good stuff.
Yeah, especially because you would have him, and then you had Biff Busick with Pennywise also. But like you had two like really strong things before it just kind of got sorry to our European listeners, but progress to death.
Yeah, I hope Biff Busick is happy doing what he does. I feel like we might have, in the same way that I talked about 2 weeks ago with Shuji Kondo, how I think we might have got the worst version of his career. I feel like we might have seen the worst possible Biff Busick career. That should have lasted longer. He should have had more great matches.
I feel like that he should, like, the better career for him would right now him being one of the creepy freaks with John Moxley right now. Like that's like his that's like his peak. I feel like in a string theory universe is that he should be a Death Rider.
I like that. Of course, if TJ Hawk ever found his voice in wrestling media again and did a greatest wrestler ever ballot, I believe he would have Biff Busick at number 1 and nobody at 2 through 100. That man loved Biff Busick matches more than I love Masaki Mochizuki matches, or you love Shingo Takagi matches, or any other. I've never seen somebody be so into Biff Busick before. It's go through the views from the Hawk's Nest. Go to that website and look at the 5-star matches, and you'll be shocked at the Oni Lorcan match that comes up.
God, Oni Lorcan, what a awful name.
It's somehow worse than Biff Busick.
I know, like, and even like Quack gave him an awful name too. He was Francis O'Rourke with
That's,
Quack.
Wow.
This guy never had a good wrestling name.
Let's see. 5-star matches. Oni Lorcan. Okay, this is from NXT 2017. Do you want to guess who his 5-star match? It was Oni Lorcan versus who? This is on an NXT TV episode from 2017.
Okay, I'm going to need you to give me a little bit of grace with this. Who was the guy who was like the big, like muscular, huge hand guy that
son of a bitch? You got it right.
The shitty message board poster.
Lars Sullivan.
Who? Yeah, I'm on today. I'm on today.
And look, nobody sent this audio to TJ because he doesn't like me personally, and I'm not making fun of it, but it's gonna come across like that. But Oney Lorcan versus Lars Sullivan from WWE 2017. TJ writes, quote, "This was simply one of the greatest matches in WWE history."
I shouldn't talk because I would be like, oh, this Akira Tozawa match from 2007 is that. Speaking of which, I've been watching a lot of old Tozawa lately. Case.
Oh, good. Is there maybe a podcast around the corner that would discuss these sorts of things?
Yeah, potentially. Like even more so than me talking about Shingo Takagi. When I talk about Akira Tozawa, it's at a certain place in my heart. So keep your eyes peeled about that. And I've been doing a lot of thoughts about Stalker Ichikawa too. That should be on Voices of Wrestling sometime next week.
Good. Well, I will have, because I actually don't know when we're going to put this podcast up. I'm going to leave that in the hands of you, Mike. But my written review for the King of Gate 2024 finals has not been published yet because it was not done until this morning, which we're recording Saturday afternoon here. And I had not had the chance to write down all my thoughts. So that will be on voicesofwrestling.com Monday morning, ideally, maybe Monday afternoon. But if you're looking for a written review for some reason, it's not on there yet. It'll be up there by the start of the new week.
So let's get into it then. I mean, we're 20 minutes in. It's been a little bit for us, but with how quiet November was, they closed out the month and got into December. It's going to be a content-full month. We have essentially, we'll be talking about and around 5 shows here on the program this week, dating back to the Buyuden Volume 6 show on the 27th. But really, Case, the big story and underline and bold, Dragon Dia is our 2024 King of Gate, defeating Kota Minoura in Kota Minoura's 4th straight King of Gate final, winning with the Reptilian Rana, immediately challenging Yamato, not for the Dream Gate, but saying Yamato needs to face him for the Brave Gate in the main event of the Final Gate 2024, this coming up next Sunday from Fukuoka. However, after they all talked through it, we have now our full main event of Final Gate 2024 case, and it is a double title match. Yamato, the Dream Gate champion, will defend the Dream Gate against the King of Gate 2024 and open the Brave Gate champion, Dragon Dia, who will be defending the Brave Gate in this match, winner take all. And the fun thing about this case, we will have a new Grand Slam winner, as Yamato, if he wins, he's never been Brave Gate champion. He will be Brave Gate champion. Or if Dia wins, he'll get his Grand Slam, getting the Dream Gate title. I did not see this as a result coming, Case. What was your big takeaways of our King of Gate winner and the 3 3/4 star general finally kind of transcending past that?
When I go back and I look at the King of Gate 2023 lineup, and I see it's Dia, Jason Lee, Yamato, Don Fuji, UT Hyo, KZ Eita, Hulk Tamanaga, Minoura Doi, Yoshioka Kame, Kagatora Dragon Kid, Skywalker Shimizu, Kanda Strong Machine J, and then a few others. It's actually quite a big tournament now that I look at it. If you would have told me that a year from now there would be a first-time King of Gate winner, my eyes, let's just say, would not have gone to Dragon Dia. I am absolutely stunned in the big picture sense that they have pulled the trigger with Dia, that from June onwards, they have ridden this train as hard as they have, from everything post Super Juniors, having him and Hyo in the Brave Gate match at Kobe World, which felt like the right match to do, where both guys were peaking at the right time. And then for him to get the Brave Gate belt, he's had 3 very good defenses, and then to roll into King of Gate, a tournament that quite honestly I thought was going to be Masaki Mochizuki's to win. There was no obvious favorite this year in the same way that maybe Minoura would have been or Yoshioka would have been in years past. This is one where it was open for the taking, and I would have assumed, especially given the volatile market that is Fukuoka and the fact that it is tough to draw there, and it's only going to get tougher to draw there with just the state of the big building they run in, and how, by all accounts, it is not exactly the most consumer-friendly building. But then also, it's been 5 years now, and there is definitely no one-to-one replacement for Hakata Star Lanes, and it's just hurt the entire market of wrestling over there. I would have thought the safe pick would have been Yamato versus Masaki Mochizuki. I don't think anybody would have batted an eye at that. I only think the people that are only loosely following Dragon Gate would have perhaps been bothered by an old guy versus old guy Dreamgate match. I think the people that are actually tuned into Dragongate are far less bothered by that than those that have maybe heard rumblings of, I thought the new guys were supposed to take over. But for them to go this hard with Daya is really quite shocking. And yet I feel like by the end of King of Gate 2024, this guy has earned this Final Gate main event. It's a testament to Dragongate, and it is a testament to Daya in his two stellar performances in Korakuen Hall this past week that have me quite excited. Now, I have some reservations, but it has me quite excited for YAMATO versus Daya at Final Gate.
Yeah, and we saw from the kickoff match back in November that the two of them have been really in each other's lane for it. So in retrospect, you set that up really well at the start of the tournament. I thought that his final with Minoura finally broke through for me. He finally has a singles match that's higher than 3 3/4. Is actually a good deal higher than 3 3/4. But I think that you kind of get to see a similar thing to what we saw from Shimizu last year, where after Dead or Alive 2023 and Madoka Kakuta declaring the new Big Six, it became the story of Shimizu trying to make his stand-in over the next 6 months, building up Shimizu to be kind of the perfect challenger for Madoka Kakuta at Gate of Destiny 2023. What we see now is, as you laid out, starting in June with like essentially taking advantage of just the eyeballs from being a pitch hitter in Best of Super Juniors, then throughout the remaining part of the year. After, I would think we have to say that if we look at Daya's 2024, not that he was booked poorly or that he was like massively de-emphasized, he just didn't have anything to do up until that June, and it kind of allows everyone to kind of reset in retrospect and be like, oh, now we're going full-fledged with Dragon Daya, and he becomes the first ever Brave Gate champion or reigning Brave Gate champion to win King of Gate. Jay brought up a lot on commentary, and we saw afterwards Kid tweeting about this. Dragon Kid won El Numero Uno 2004, had never won a King of Gate tournament. Daya said, or Dragon Kid was watching this at home. Of course, Dragon Kid still out, and it will be out for a while. And he was watching it at home and saying like, hey, I'm not cheering for you in this match, Daya, that you have coming up ahead. I have to believe that that Dragon Gate needs a wrestler supported by as many fans, and YAMATO is that guy. And he says, the part of Dragon Kid's tweet's a pretty long one that I thought was really interesting. And of course, this is machine translated. However, I think there are many people who want to see Daya win and create a new unimaginable feature of Dragon Gate. And personally, I would like to see Daya winning the titles of Dream and Brave. I'm really looking forward to December 15th, and if possible, like to go as YAMATO's second. But in the current situation, I have to watch it live from home via network streaming. And I think that the unimaginable line is the big takeaway from it for me, because you have someone who you look at where things were for him throughout the calendar year, at least up until the Super Junior thing. And although he became a major figure since losing the mask and was the main character of the promotion, he just was in a Dragon Kid kind of lane of being that. And now even Dragon Kid is kind of pointed out that this is almost unimaginable and just not even was worth considering before. But now the potential of Daya not just breaking through, being the first dragon to win the Dream Gate, but the idea that he will be doing this as a Brave Gate champion is a brave new world that we can see in Fukuoka. And I think for how the Final Gate cards coming together case, this is a smart match to do given the strength of the remainder of the card and some of the outsiders you have coming in. You can forsake having a Brave Gate match and Dream Gate match. You don't need to have all four titles and four title matches.
Oh, yeah.
You can have just a super powered main event, and you have a back end there, especially looking at getting Marufuji and Sugiura on the show, that you're able to do this because you're not going to have to put the weight on the other title matches, I would say.
I'll compliment Daya, and then I'll voice my concern for this match. You know, I watched most of the King of Gate finals live, but I was at work, so I kind of had one eye on it. I was doing other things. I didn't really have a chance to focus on Daya versus Minoura much as it was happening, but I I watched the finish and I thought, okay, it's a decision they've made. I'm still not entirely sold on it. But again, that was me not focusing on the match, only watching with one eye. And when I went back and watched all the way through and I was really focused on it, there's the moment in the finishing stretch where Minoura goes for and then connects with the gong and Daya kicks out. And Korakuen Hall, it's like for one brief moment there was a time machine and they traveled back to a 2019 or before crowd where Korakuen gets really loud and they get really behind Daya, and then they go into the finishing stretch. And I watched that, and in a way, Dragon Daya shut me up in that moment because I can't see that reaction in a big match like that and then think that this is the wrong decision by any means. It is clear that the work and the time they have invested in Dragon Daya has paid off in this specific scenario. The fear that I have as we go into Final Gate, and it's something that you and I have talked at length about the way the Dreamgate has been booked since 2021, and Ryo Saito took at least a more public-facing figure in terms of the Dragon Gate booking structure, and specifically the problems that they've had with baby faces as champions, is occasionally they get too cute. Occasionally they do these Dreamgate matches that are babyface versus babyface with nobody leaning one way or another, and I think it divides the crowd. My issue with Daya, and maybe not issue, maybe concern is just the right word here, is let's look at YAMATO and Daya and let's list the attributes. You look at Dragon Daya. He's a great company mascot. He goes to all of these different promotions and he represents Dragon Gate very well. And he might not be the best wrestler on the roster, but I'll be damned, Dragon Daya can have some really fun matches. And then you look at YAMATO, and he is a company mascot, and he goes all of these places, and he represents Dragon Gate very well. And he might not be the best wrestler on the roster, but I'll be damned, YAMATO has some very fun matches. And I just worry that we are putting Coke and Diet Coke in the ring together, and YAMATO is Coke Classic and Dragon Daya is Diet Coke, and all of the things that have worked for a Daya to get to this point are going to be swallowed up by the fact that YAMATO is more charismatic and he is a bigger star and he is a better wrestler. And we might leave Final Gate, worst case scenario, with Daya in a worse spot than when he came in with.
Yeah, I guess I see that point, and the idea that you have them both as mascots and standard bearers. I guess I'm not as worried, and my justification for that is they've had multiple mascot or like people being like the focus points, the cornerstones a lot throughout the company. And I think that we are at a time right now where we've had YAMATO kind of being the sole cornerstone for essentially 6 years, I would say. Really, I would say that if we're talking about the Nuko era, 2018 post Strongheart split, he has been the number one figure, and it's not really an argument. I think that they've clearly, like, they abandoned the Big Six strategy. They were like, oh, he's the company ace, we're going to go with that. And you didn't have anyone else there. Like Shun Skywalker, they send around, and Shun gets all these bookings, but he's not always seen as Shun Skywalker of Dragon Gate. He's now gone a little bit more now. Just this is Shun Skywalker, who is a part of Dragon Gate, but it's Shun Skywalker, and it's a different kind of mascot there. Whereas Dragon Daya is fully in the Dragon Kid vein. Like, how many times has Dragon Kid had Dreamgate shots, has been built up, or has gotten the matches, and Aichi gets beat up and he's kind of the same place? I guess I want to see how he reacts to after losing this match, to see how much he loses. Like, is this going to be like a full cash in of the last 6 months, or is there going to be enough there that, yeah, he loses this match, we're going to have to vacate the Brave Gate? That will be something that in January they'll have to figure out. But I don't think that he will lose a lot. I think that he's kind of, in a way, becoming that stronger form of Dragon Kid, in that manner of, did you ever expect Dragon Kid to have a Dreamgate run throughout his career?
There were times in which he was certainly closer. You know, if he had beaten Pac in 2019, even though we knew there was a larger story at play there, but let's say, contractually AEW starts at the end of May, and that Dead or Alive match happened at the beginning of May. Had Dragon Kid beat Pac for the Dreamgate belt on that show, I don't think any of us would have gone, oh no, what are they doing? Dragon Gate is doomed. I think that was probably his best shot to win it. Throughout history, yeah, he's always been, not even a 1B guy, but more of an option 2 guy instead of that first option. And that's why he's never been Dreamgate champion. I do think, however, for a variety of reasons, time, skill, working in a different era of the promotion, by the time that the, almost yearly Aichi Dragon Kid loss happened, he just had more equity built up in the company. And I don't think Daya has it yet. That's where I could be wrong, is maybe this has done so much for Daya that he's just permanently factored into a different tier on the roster than he used to be. But I do worry that this is just a case where, even with the Dragon lineage, I understand that, but I do think in real time right now, Yamato and Dragon Daya are largely being presented as the same. And I say this having not watched their Kyoto 6-man match yet. Maybe Yamato really leans in heel and we have nothing to worry about. But I do have a fear, based off primarily what we saw with Yoshioka and Kikuta last summer, that they're going to present these guys as, these guys do the same thing, and they're going to have a quality Dreamgate match, and then the crowd's not going to know who to cheer for, and we're going to come out of it with everybody in a worse position than the one they came in with.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of scenario that Ryo Saito has booked himself into, because no matter what, coming out of Final Gate, one, you have that match, as you laid out pretty well. We know how bad Yamato, evil Yamato, him going full Mad Blanky and not sleeping, Yamato could easily just make it kind of defined like this. But then what happens when he wins and he's sitting up there with 3 belts and he's going to have to vacate the Brave Gate? What scenario has, or what problem has Ryo Saito created for himself there? Because you can't have Daya back in the Brave Gate scene after a loss like this.
Yeah, you can't have him lose the match at Final Gate and then be in a Brave Gate tournament.
No, he pretty much can't be a Brave Gate challenger, I would argue, for a good solid 18 months. You have to get the belt away from him at this point.
This is where not having Yoshioka really, really hurts them, because the solution
would be Rey de Prejas with Yoshioka.
Yeah, or even, if they just, let's say it's Yamato and Daya and Yamato wins, and then after the match Yoshioka returns, this will sound demeaning towards Dragon Kid, but you can give him the hook and just replace him with Yoshioka going forward. And I don't think that hurts Daya. I think it just re-elevates Yoshioka to where he's at. You can't do it with Kikuta. You don't have the equity as a tag team there. You can't do it with Tanaka. It doesn't make any sense to do that. But you need something for Daya to do, because I think we both assume he's going to lose this match, although we said that with Kai 3 years ago, and Kai ended up beating Yamato at Final Gate. We both assume Daya is going to lose. He can't just lose and then do nothing. You can't do what AEW does to baby faces and have him get hot and then disappear. You have to have Daya transition into something. Logic would be, oh, well, he's going to be at the Brave Gate tournament. But that's assuming that Yamato vacates the Brave Gate belt and then they do a tournament in January. And then you can't have Daya in that because he just lost the Brave Gate belt.
Right, yeah. Then you're getting too much and it has worked for him in a way, because now everyone's in on the joke. It turns into a Flamita challenging for the Brave Gate situation.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I'll say something crazy here. Is it a safer bet in the short term to have Dragon Daya win the Dreamgate belt and then have him lose it at Champion Gate in Osaka?
You're going to have to then completely reset Paradox then. Because the only reason why Paradox works is that Yamato is the wall that the young generation must climb over.
And it would be weird for
them to even
Daya
exist.
to be the one to do that. More so, then Daya's one-upping the Reiwa generation, and I don't know if that's what you want to do, because long-term, the Reiwa guys just have more value than Daya does.
Different the value, I would say. I would say that Daya has more value than a Strong Machine J, but I would say that it's a different kind of value and different level of expectations. The one thing that this tournament win and title match does do is, do we need to re-examine our expectations and our window of what we expect from Dragon Dia, because it's a bit of poetry in that it happens almost 3 years to the day he loses his mask, but we've had to reassess him a couple times here, and I almost feel like we're due to do that again, and maybe his window of expectation goes higher than it was before, because now he's getting his first Dream Key fresh out of winning the singles tournament. And I know it's a bit that I've done for years, Case. It is to determine Dragon Gate's number one singles wrestler, and technically right now it's Dragon Dia. So I feel like, do you know, before winning the tournament, I did not think Dia had a Dreamgate trajectory. I thought he would eventually.
No, not at all. I didn't think he had the trajectory of a challenger.
Really? I thought that he could maybe be a Champion Gate challenger one year.
In 2022, I would have thought that, but not even in 2024.
But now we have to entertain the possibility that this is a real title match. This is not we need to fill in a cork and we need to fill out a card and it looks like there's significant weight being put into this Dia push. I mean, winning the tournament and all of the reaction he's gotten since working in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Do we need to re-examine what our expectations are with him? Like, what's his ceiling at this point?
I think if Dia beats Yamato, and I'm gonna spoiler, this is gonna end with Shun Skywalker becoming Open the Dreamgate champion, but Dia beats Yamato. You have 2 Korakuens in January. Those are anchored by, let's say, the Bravegate tournament, which we all assume would happen. And I'll put this under an umbrella, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it would be, anchored by the Bravegate tournament and by Kato versus Paradox. And then in February, you have, let's say it's, a main event of in Cork, and it's Tanaka and Kakuta and Dia versus Shun and Ishin and Jason. And then V1, Champion Gate in Osaka, it's Dragon Dia versus Shun Skywalker. Shun Skywalker took this guy's mask 3 years ago. Now he takes his title, and now we're off to the races for Shun at Dead or Alive and then Shun at Kobe World. I don't see business being catastrophic if that is the vision. I think, and look, I don't like the fact that the company does 2 Korakuens in January. I don't like the fact that the company does 2 Korakuens in June. We see with this King of Gate attendance, which was only 1,100, and they've been consistently doing 1,300 or 1,400, that there
folks
is just
are going to the Chikawa retirement.
Exactly. This company is just not strong enough to do 2 Korakuens a month for whatever reason. The Kyoto attendance that they had today, the day we're recording, was up from when they were in July. Osaka seems relatively healthy. Kobe has spiked this year and then, has settled into a place that seems relatively healthy, at least given the overall state of the Japanese wrestling economy. For whatever reason, this fan base does not want to go to Korakuen Hall twice in 1 month. So they're going to do that in January. So you've got 3 Korakuen shows, assuming Dia wins the belt at Final Gate.
Case.
Yes.
Wait, they've been in Tokyo 3 times if you include the Buyoden show.
Yeah, that's right. I wonder if that is a 1-to-1 fan base.
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't know. That's an honest question. Somebody that either lives in Tokyo or goes to Buyoden or whatever, they can answer that question. I don't know if the people buying tickets for that are also, if they see, Yamato and Sasaki in a tag title match against Ishin and Kai, if they're also going, God, I hope Dragon Dia wins King of Gate. I just don't know if they're the same audience, but nevertheless, it's still Tokyo. So you have all these shows here. You can stretch it from Final Gate to Champion Gate pretty quickly, and I feel like they could get away with that. I think Yamato should win. I think there's a more rich story with Yamato as champion, but you have this Daiki Yanagiuchi thing, and I don't want to get on that just yet. I have more to say on the Dream Gate, but we have this Daiki Yanagiuchi thing, and if Yamato loses the belt, we know he can be occupied with something else January, February, March, and I do wonder if the right decision is Yamato, but actually the safer decision, the less possibly catastrophic one, is Dia winning and then either having one defense through Champion Gate and then losing there, or being a V1 champion that loses at Champion Gate.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of intrigued by the idea what the Brave Gate tournament would be, because I would say, like you brought him up, Daiki being kind of the Paradox assistant / protege, like he could kind of get in there for that. Hamare sitting there at 75 kilos.
That feels ripe for the taking.
Yeah. So I think either way, the Bravegate situation might end up being like no offense to Daya and Hyo, but as someone who has watched both these guys for their entire career, we've seen them enough around the Bravegate division at this point that you have a real opportunity to have a real breath of fresh air, dare I say, almost like a rookie ratings environment for a Bravegate tournament. Having Daya do one title match with the idea that you have Rey de Parejas, you're going to have whatever this Bravegate situation is, and really with how the scheduling is, you have opportunities to kind of fill it out there. You could easily, I think, like you could justify like a Dia X match or someone like this in a Korakuen Hall, especially with the way that they've kind of built it up there and the fact that they will just run Korakuen as much as possible at this point. I think that, as you were saying, 13 Tokyo shows or 14 Tokyo shows a year, including Dangerous Gate, to me always felt like that was, you're leaving a little bit of meat on the bone, but you're not going overkill. I think we've now seen they've gone from 14 shows a year in Tokyo now to this year it'd be closer to 23 or thereabouts.
If you're factoring in the Buiden shows, absolutely.
I'm just going off the top of my head. I'm not even doing napkin math here.
Well, the problem is that, for the longest time it was the two Cork and December shows, and this was during a time where they were selling out every Cork and show, so that wasn't an issue. And then in 2020 they added the second January show, but the second January show was the Torimon reunion show. It was something. It wasn't just a Dragongate Cork, and they might have actually done two that year, and then the reunion show. Now that I think they did a Twin Gate tournament that year, so that was 3 January Corkin shows, with one being completely different. And then they added the June block of the 2 shows, but that was King of Gate, and then that was a Torimon reunion show. And again, it was something different. This company, and I wish they were, obviously, but they're just not strong enough to say right now, hey, come to Korakuen Hall twice, you're going to see 2 different Dragongate shows. Now, if it was, again, a reunion show or something wildly different in the second show, I could buy into that a little bit more. But just as a creature of habit and somebody that looks at the lay of the land, it seems very clear they do not have the fan base that is going to go to Korakuen Hall 2 days in a row in January, 2 days in a row in June, and then 2 separate times in December. I don't know why that is, but that's the way it is.
Right. So with the way that they're running it as much, I feel like you could easily now say, yeah, you could do a Dia Dreamgate match. Whereas if you're running 14 times a year, that you would not have an easy lane to do a V1. You probably would be like, got to do 0 keys, and he's dropping it at Champion Gate,
Yeah. Now, I'll ask this question. It's funny, and I said this during COVID, too, and we were, trying to parse our way through these capacity-restricted venues and what to make of the attendance there. It sounds so silly to... at various times throughout the last 5 years in Japanese wrestling, oh, this company drew 1,100 to Korakuen, and this other company only drew 800 to Korakuen. That feels ridiculous because it's only a difference of 300 people, but the margins are so thin that I think it warrants that discussion sometime. And we've seen with Dragongate this year, I actually think it's a little bit of an underrated story. It's consistently 1,200, 1,300, sniffing 1,400, never quite that 1,500 full sellout in the new era, but consistently very, very strong in Korakuen. They only do 1,100 people this time around. Mike, do you think people stayed home? And this is doom and gloom. And tell me if I'm out of line when I say this. Do you think people stayed home because they didn't want to see Coach Minoura in another King of Gate finals?
I mean, if we were going to start listing reasons for this attendance being this what it is,
which is, again, not a drastic decline, but it's the King of Gate finals, and it's down from most other Korakuens they've done this year, and that is notable.
Right. So I just really kind of look at it for Kota Minoura being, he's not entered a King of Gate that he has not reached the finals in, and it would be down the list. Would it be someone I can imagine some people being like, I'm kind of tired of this, but did you also see the amount of Kota Minoura fan signs and fans there for Minoura doing this? I can see that being somewhat mitigated with this. If there's one thing, I think it's the fact that the Ichikawa retirement show is virtually sold out at this point, and a lot of people have made their decisions. And I mean, this is also a time period where Dragongate had 2 fan tours over the last 4 weeks too.
That's true.
So I think that there's a lot of things that made this number down. Do I think that Some of those have mitigating circumstances like Minoura, yeah. But I do kind of think that there was some picking and choosing that resulted in this show having only 1,100 fans there.
Because it's not, you look at the 4 finalists. Well, it's not a Mochizuki problem.
No,
it's not a KZ problem. And you heard again, you heard the reaction to Daya, which was so refreshing to hear, especially in that final match. You go, okay, well, it's not Daya. Well, okay, we all have past trauma with one guy here, and it's definitely not Mochizuki, KZ, or Daya. Who could it be? Again, that's far-fetched, that's unproven, that's pure speculation, but it is something that, as I want to kind of talk about these matches here, it's something that can't be ignored because let me ask you, Mike, which match did you think was better? Let me ask it this way. Which match did you think was better? Daya versus Minoura or Daya versus Mochizuki?
Oh, Daya versus Minoura.
Okay, interesting. I think I'm way lower on Daya. Now, I'll say this. Daya Minoura, I think, was technically a better match, but I had so much more fun watching Daya versus Mochizuki.
Yeah, because Mochizuki kicked the shit out of him, and that's like one of the best joys of being a Dragongate fan is when Mochizuki decides, guess what? I'm attacking your stomach. We all the time you saw that first stomach strike case, you immediately put a half star onto the match.
And he did the same thing against KZ and Hokkaido. It's just, it was the Mochizuki formula was working a-okay throughout the last week, but you're in this scenario where I watched this Daya versus Mochizuki match that I go 3 3/4 on. It's full of life, and I thought it did a lot of good for Daya. And it's just this really, really good match. Of the Daya 3 3/4 star matches, it's probably my favorite of the entire year. And then you have this Minoura match in the finals where I went 4 stars on it, 4 stars on the dot, but it was a 4-star, if not a 4.5-star Dragon Daya performance. I thought Daya worked so unbelievably hard to make that match something great. And it was something great. Whereas Minoura was just plugged into this formula.
Powering through.
I mean, I don't even know if power implies, almost something greater than what he did. He was plugged into this babyface versus heel formula. Minoura does this, Daya does that, and because Daya did that exceptionally well, we had ourselves a great match. The thing that I loathed about Daya versus Minoura, even though I recognized that it was something great, was watching Coach Minoura in this match felt like watching Eita versus Dragon Kid in 2018 before Pac came into the company, where T-Hawk's gone and it's an uncertain future and we don't know what's next. But you know what I know? I know Eita's not the guy. And I that's why I hate all of those Dragon Kid matches. I do not have fond memories of that Eita versus Dragon Kid feud because they tried to make Eita the guy, and the only reason that wasn't a colossal failure was because Pac bailed him out. Eita's a great number 2. I want Eita in tag teams. I want him in trios matches. I want him in standout tournament singles matches. When it comes time to be a fucking star, Eita's not the guy. And I have been a Coach Minoura fan since day 1 of his career. July 5th, 2018, I watched it. I remember it quite well. You know what, Mike? Coach Minoura is not the guy. He's fucking Eita. And you know who has already surpassed him? It's Ishin. Ishin might be a guy. Shun Skywalker is a guy. Coach Minoura is not a guy.
Yeah, I feel like for the main event, I'll be bold and I'll tell you what my star rating was.
Please.
It's purely Dragon Daya. 4.5 stars.
Really? You know what? I think you're the consensus. I think I'm lower on this match than most people.
And I'll say the one thing that Minoura did very well was put the heat on Daya. But that's more on Daya than it is on Minoura, isn't it? Like that's all Daya's engendered kind of response over the last 7 months.
Minoura did nothing technically wrong in the match.
Yeah.
I thought he was so unremarkable doing what he did.
Yeah, whereas, scenario-wise, this would not have worked out. If this was an Ishin or a Jason, frankly. Shun was off the show. I think Shun actually not being on the show might have had a bit to do with the attendance as well, just to be fair.
I certainly like that theory. I can't prove or disprove it, but boy, do I like where you're at there.
But I think you look at this match and you have a very typical Z-Brats singles match to start until you really have Daya's dive train. And then where you got to this was Daya bumped his ass off on some stuff that Minoura did that was not the most impressive stuff that we've seen Minoura do as a heel. I think that he's a very loose wrestler, and it's kind of, as a heel, it's exposed him in a way. Like how often does the jumping high look like it lands flush? It's usually against someone like Mochizuki Jr. or Daya, who just takes it on, just like jumps into it and then jumps then sells it. I think that Minoura is still figuring himself out, and he was positioned in the right kind of person that Daya could use him as a jungle gem. Frankly, in the closing stretch, I thought that the flipping out of the Golden Rose into the Reptilian Rana was one of the best finishes that they've done in a long time. But
looked awesome because Minoura's never struggled putting together an awesome last 90 seconds.
Right, yeah. The Casadora driver kick out, like there was a lot of moments there, but
Minoura standing up after the vampire scissors, I actually thought was a great spot. But again, it was, he stood there stoically, and if you're going to do that same spot with Ishin, I know Ishin's just going to suck me in way more. And that has nothing to do with the way that either Minoura or Ishin is presented. It's just the fact that Ishin has become an exceptional pro wrestler in 2024.
Right. And if Jason was there, you just know it would have been more crisp,
Jason was awesome in his match. Well, more on that later, but Jason was awesome.
But I think that when you really kind of look at it and you're doing the credit side of the match, like my credit goes to Daya, and maybe I feel like I was a little down on the Mochizuki match, really, to be quite honest, because I thought that watching these, and I watched basically the 4 shows from Hokkaido and Tokyo consecutively, I thought that you really built up over Hokkaido Mochizuki finding ways to get wins. Like you had like that Snapdragon bridging suplex that got him essentially into the knockout round, but then Daya does the kick out of that. You get the huge pop of that. He does the Bible to win for this. And it's not that I think that it was a bad match. It just very much, for me, what I expect, and maybe that's my own familiarity with Mochizuki at this point. I saw it was the Mochizuki formula, and it was compressed, essentially. It was a 6-minute match.
Yeah, but I actually, that's funny, because I thought that aided the match, where they got in and got out in this very efficient way. And then the other thing that I liked, and this my review hasn't been published yet, so I haven't had a chance to talk about this anywhere, is what's crazy is they've been in the same company for 6 years now. That's only the 20th match that have had Daya and Mochizuki on opposing sides. It's their first singles match. I don't even know of that 20. I did not look to see how many were televised and how many weren't, but because they never wrestle each other, in the bulk of their matches with one another were those original M3K where they were doing either Mochi Jr. and Susumu Kanda against D-Courage, or after Junior got hurt, just Mochi Susumu Kanda versus D-Courage. That's the bulk of their match. So they had totally unexplored chemistry to me, and I actually really liked the fact that it was as short as it was.
Yeah, no, I totally see your justification for that. Like, it makes sense. I just for what it was, like seeing a lot of Mochizuki and how Mochizuki was working throughout the Hokkaido shows kind of maybe colored my response to it, maybe. Mm-hmm. And if I instead watched the Hokkaido shows and then, took a day, watched the Korakuen, maybe then I would have had a little bit more of a reaction to that. But yeah, I really look at this King Gate final as the Daya true coming out show as a singles competitor. I think that he did not take a step wrong, and for his style of wrestling with this, like, this is as good as you want him to be as a main event babyface, I would say. And if this is the thesis that we've seen the chemistry with him and Yamato they build on in Final Gate, I have no concerns. I will have some rating that begins with a 4 for them at Final Gate.
It's really impressive the entire year that Daya's had, where I talked about this in my review, but 2022, Yoshioka and Daya are the people that really push Dragongate forward, and they have this great year. And I know we have this clipped out on YouTube of a whole segment we did at the end of 2022 talking about just how prevalent D-Courage were and how they were the main characters of Dragongate going forward, and they had this really great year. And that extends all the way through Kakuta's Dreamgate run. And then by the time that Kakuta loses that belt, you usher in Ryoya Tanaka. And so 2024, if 2023 is all about Kakuta, the beginning of 2024 is all about Tanaka, and with Yoshioka hurt and Kakuta being cycled down the way that he was, Dragon Dia, became completely irrelevant at the start of the year. I mean, just a guy doing nothing important, a guy that didn't feel important, a guy that felt like he had no upward trajectory, felt like he had peaked. And if it wasn't for, because it's not like the New Japan fans love him, if it wasn't for the Dragon Gate fan base just opening up to the idea that, hey, this is our guy, he went to New Japan, this is a guy who probably has a pretty bleak 2024, and instead he made the most of his Brave Gate run. He made the most of King of Gate. He made the most of this finals. You cannot deny the results of the gong kick out and the reaction that he got there. They've clearly elevated a guy, and I'm very excited for him. I've been a huge fan of him since his debut, and yeah, I would say it's 75-25 that Yamato retains the belt at Final Gate. It is not one of those where I don't think this is open and shut as everybody else thinks it is. I think there's a real chance Dia could leave Final Gate with the belt.
How do you feel when you switch to Geico and save on your car insurance? It's like going to work on one Thursday morning and thinking to yourself, just one more day until Friday. But then somebody in the elevator says, Happy Friday! Then you check your phone quickly and discover today is actually Friday. So yes, Happy Friday, random stranger in the elevator. Happy Friday indeed. Yep, switching and saving with Geico feels just like that. Get more with Geico.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge. From worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Yeah, and especially with how Dragon Gate books now their beginning of the year, it's not as reliant for the champion to be a lot stronger with that. You're able to kind of have a tournament, and we've seen how the promotion kind of treats champions around tournaments. You can lose a lot of momentum, but on the other hand, you also can be, you do not have any concerns about needing to have things on their back. You don't need to necessarily go like, well, the company is now on Dia's back. No, the company really, they have their schedule that they will go through. We have at least the first few months of 2025 figured out. It is not going to be like going into a whole bunch of icebergs with the idea of him as champion. And I think that does raise his percentage. I think 75-25 is where I start off with. I think I can 2-1 maybe. I think it's maybe 66-34 at this point.
And again, we haven't seen, at least you didn't get that far in the Kyoto show, did you?
I only watched the match that he told me to watch.
Yeah, which we can mention that now. If you haven't seen Monte versus Kame from Kyoto, go watch that, because not only do they do a bunch of swanky technical wrestling that made me go, why wasn't Big Hug just this the entire time? But there's some Kame character stuff there that's important. So everybody watch that match. But we say this without having watched Kyoto. We don't know how Yamato was presented in that match. We don't know how strong Dia looked, but
we do know Dia won with a Casadora driver.
Yep. And we do know that it's not impossible that he leaves Final Gate with the title. Before we move on, let me ask you one more question about Dia. Is his best singles match him and Takuma from Champion Gate?
Before the third, yeah. I would say that, because I had that at 4.25.
And you have the Minoru match higher. Wow, that's interesting.
I really think that this was a real tour de force for Dia. Like, for someone that I had him firmly, and like just my expectations were just that he was always going to be a very good wrestler. It not dissimilar to how Hyobe finally kind of put it all together after being a charisma monster for 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like now, and some of that also is like Minoru is objectively has gotten huge over the last since joining Z-Brats, really.
Yeah.
And maybe that helps him out a bit with this. Yamato, Jay was kind of filling time in commentary, but Yamato has to lose weight because Dragon Gate does take these things kind of seriously, and that maybe could impact the match in that regard.
But by the way, Jay was awesome calling the finals of this tournament and highlighting something that I had never really thought about, which was he compared Shingo and Hulk to Minoru and Daya, in the sense that Shingo and Hulk were in the dojo when Toryumon became Dragongate, and they stayed through the split, and that Minoru and Daya, those are the only graduates of the class of 2018, and those guys both debuted after Dragongate went from 2 words to 1 word, and he really painted that picture in a compelling way, and it's why I think Jay's the best play-by-play guy there is in wrestling, and I say that as somebody that enjoys the work of Tony Schiavone, and that I probably like Excalibur more than the average wrestling fan at this point, but I'm sorry, I don't think anybody's on Jay's level, and this was another match where I thought he was really in his zone. I thought he did a great job there.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about other ways that Jay was great on the show, but let's talk about the rest of King of Gate. We got our remainder of our television audience, a TV time happening all in Hokkaido with 3 nights of shows from the 29th of November to December 1st. I thought that there was a lot of fun stuff throughout the weekend, but my favorite King of Gate match, I think, was Kakuta versus Susumu on the first night. I thought that those two really worked strong, especially the idea of Susumu just trying to dismantle every part of Kakuta's body. What were your favorite takeaways from the Sapporo triple shot?
If you haven't seen any of these shows, the first show top to bottom is very good. The second show is okay. The third show I thought was a little bit better than the second show, but not as good as the first show.
That's fair.
And yeah, so I mean, if you're catching us now and you haven't watched any King of Gate outside of just maybe that opening night in Korakuen, I would watch Susumu Kakuta, which I thought was utterly fantastic. I would watch YAMATO versus Jason Lee, which I thought was very good. And then I would skip all the way to Korakuen after that. I thought the Mochizuki matches against KZ, or he had Hyo and then KZ on the last night, thought they were good. Didn't think they were anything special. But I did think Kakuta versus Susumu in that building that is literally very cold, everybody there wearing their puffer jackets, to be able to get that crowd invested in a slow limb work match the way that they did, it goes to show you that, 1, Kakuta can still go. Everybody forgets Kakuta can go, but he can. And 2, Susumu Yokosuka, not many better than him.
Yeah, Kakuta's only 25, folks. Like, don't sell your stock on him at this point. The other stuff that I would call out for Hokkaido, the overall storyline of the weekend was, and it dated back apparently to Okinawa, Hulk was getting, as everyone expected, he was getting headhunted by Paradox. He gets offered, and he only accepts after the end of the show on Sunday. Curtain call plays. They play the Hayabusa song, and Hulk comes up and interrupts and says, "Hey, I've got new friends now, and now we are members of Paradox." And they did an impromptu, basically 8-man tag to just completely send the crowd home happy. One match that I wanted to touch on was the second placers 4-way on Sunday. God, Flamita and Monte, we should just stop dicking around and just book them as a Rey de Parejas team. Like, their interactions and their work in this 4-way dance was incredible on the Sunday night show.
I said this in the Discord this past week. I'm almost uninterested in whatever, if they try to tell some story between Kame and Hyo and Monte. I think Kame and Hyo, obviously they're doing something there. We've watched enough Dragongate to know, hey, they keep on wrestling each other in singles and tags, and that is obviously going to lead somewhere. Put
Kame
Monte
is probably turning heel.
Yes, and in an ideal world he will. But
yeah,
Monte, put him in Natural Vibes. End of discussion. I'm uninterested in any other option. He needs to be in Natural Vibes, doing tags with Flamita and trios matches with UT and Flamita, and that is the end of it. I don't want another option. I don't want to be presented with another option. I don't need another option. That is the option.
Imagine the Twin Towers team you can get with Monte and SMJ too.
Or Monte and Shimizu, because Shimizu, as stated on the show many times, is one of the best tag team wrestlers I have ever seen.
Yeah, there's a lot that you could do with that. And I saw someone in Discord say maybe turn that yellow part of the Rasta colors into a white, and you could do that very smoothly. And then it's like, oh, look, it's also Natural Vibes Mexico edition.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I would like to see Dragongate in my current zone of wrestling fandom. I would be personally very excited if Dragongate embraced Mexican wrestling a little bit more than they currently are. I think it'd be good to come home and do all those sorts of things for the company. So I'm very into it. Yeah, no, his chemistry with Flamita as a tag team, it's not because Cub said this a while ago, and as he's one to do, he made a very good point. But AEW lumping all of their, or a lot of, I should say a lot of their, not all of their, but a lot of their luchadors together as like, oh, this is the lucha unit, is shitty, because that has historically never worked out for any Mexican wrestler in an American-based company, where it's like, hey, we're going to put all the black guys on the roster together, all the luchadors on the roster together. It's historically, that has never created upward mobility for anybody, I think, other than The Rock and the Nation of Domination. It's not a good thing. But putting Monte and Flamita together is not lazy booking where it's like, put the Mexicans with each other. It's like, no, these guys have natural chemistry as a tag team that should be explored further and further.
Yeah, and UT and KZ have spent significant times in Mexico.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of justification, and I feel like you could really have something fun there. But yeah, it's interesting with them in Sapporo. It's a physically cold building. They got as many people as they could into it. They got enough people on the buses up for it, and this was not the strongest Sapporo triple shot week. You did get a fun North Tribe revival on the first night. Like that was kind of a nice fun thing. But as you were saying, like the first night, I thought by and large was the best show of the weekend, and you really were playing around with the overall Hulk to Paradox. Everyone knew that was what you're going to go with this. The only other little fun note is because of Shun got sick and then Shimizu got sick, there was some card shuffling. We got Maraha Asapa reuniting. It's like Ryo Saito's first match in months, and they went up against Don Fuji and Yasushi Kanda, and to troll Kanda, they played the Renaissance name. That cracked me up.
That is something for the real heads only. I'm sure Dragongate is glad that you enjoyed that, because I think you were their target audience.
I mean, as with nearly everything of Don Fuji, I am the target audience. So this Korakuen show was not just about King of Gate. We had a lot of big events happening on the show. I think first and foremost, what's worth talking about is as he plays into the semi-main event, and then as later a return, Daiki Yanagiuchi. We finally have seen the Daiki Yanagiuchi elevation. He has a really strong performance in the opener where he was just about to pin Jackie Kamei, but loses there. Then he steps up in the semifinal as Yoshiki Kato returns from his knee injury looking like a brick shithouse. Daiki basically begs Paradox so that he could join them in this match, but Kato was demanding it to be a 5-on-4 match. And we had Z-Brats, Kai Ishin, Jason Lee, Yoshiki Kato, and Hamare versus Paradox, Yamato, Susumu, the debut of BB Hulk in the unit, and Kagatora along with Daiki Yanagiuchi. Kato gets the win with the Limit Bomb, TN Revolucion's old finisher, on Daiki. And that if you did not think that the King of Gate final was your match of the night, I think that this one would pretty easily stole it.
Yeah, this was my match of the night. I wrote more about this match in my review than I did any of the King of Gate stuff. Because this match did something that I love, and I really sat and thought, because again, I was busy this week, so I had watched a lot of the show, but hadn't had a chance to write anything about it. So I was really thinking about what I want to say, and especially about this match. I want to figure out why I love this match as much as I do. And it hit me that Dragongate is really the only company I think that can, I don't want to say can get away with this, the only company that leans into this, and I wish more would, where they benefit so much from following the rigid structure of Japanese wrestling. Here is the upcoming tour. Here are the matches on the card. This is when they're going to take place. Please enjoy it. Please come to our show. They benefit from presenting wrestling like that, but then also infusing the American wrestling idea of anything can happen at any time. You're watching a live show where we promote chaos to some degree. And I think that's a very tired formula. I greatly missed the days where AEW TV was a little bit more structured than it is now. But Dragongate is I think, the only company in the world that does stuff like this, where this was supposed to be an 8-man tag. Yoshiki Kato appears, Daiki Yanagiuchi emerges, and then all of a sudden we have this match where, an 8-man tag that was Paradox and Z-Brats without Kato, without Daiki. Yeah, I'm sure it would have been fine, but because we got this unexpected impromptu thing, all of a sudden this match has so much more life to it. And American wrestling companies can't do it because, again, that's sort of the ecosystem. As there's not a lot of rules and there's not a lot of structure, and Japanese wrestling companies don't deviate from those rules or structure. Dragongate is sort of the only group that can do it, and it becomes so memorable when they choose to go this route, whether it is in September when it was the combination of Hamare's heel turn and then Valletta's return, all happening in the span of an hour, or whether it was in 2017 where Shimizu and Yamamura had the 20-minute time limit draw, and then later on in the show they got invited to wrestle Berserk as fill-ins for what was at that time a decimated Maximum. It was going to be Shima and Mochizuki, and they stepped aside for those youngsters. Or the one that I always reference, 2014, BB Hulk wanted to take on Mad Blanky all by himself, so it was 5 against 1. He loses, very early on in the match. KZ pins him. And instead of just ending the show, the Jimmy send one guy out, and Monster Express sends one guy out, and the Millennials send one guy out, and Team Veteran sends one guy out. And then you have this impromptu 10-man tag team match to end the show. And that was 10 years ago, and I remember it beat by beat. And 10 years from now, I'm going to remember Daiki and Kato being added to this match at the last second, beat by beat, because what they did here, to me, was just a great version of what pro wrestling can be.
Yeah, and you've picked someone in Daiki who you've had the overwhelming storyline of. The guy can't get a win. He is Korakuen Hall's favorite son, and they're always super behind him. So he's exactly what I'm sorry to say this case. There's no way that this would have come off as good as if Ryo Fuda was the one who stepped up. It had to be Daiki.
Especially not the way Fuda wrestled in that opening match. That was a tough one.
I mean, that Arabian press looked like he was skirting the apron a little bit.
That Arabian press looked like something that he shouldn't do again.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about moves that shouldn't be done again. Maybe Flam Fly should be added onto that list too. But Daiki looks great in this. Like, you're not asking him to go out there and wrestle a broomstick for a 3-star match. He's there to get his ass kicked, to do the Gucci Rocket, and to get a bunch of heated near falls when he goes for like the Sukadora and all of that. Like, that's his position, and he did it as well as anyone could expect. Mm-hmm. He was incredible in this. You got some mouth blood out of him, and I think part of that was in this match. One of the reasons that made it so special was you got to have Daiki versus Kato, and you got to have Daiki versus Hamare, and you really got to see this future generation put on display here. Like, I can't remember one thing that Kagetora, Susumu, or Hulk did in this match. Like, but that's the point. The match is really about Daiki and Kato and a little bit of Hamare too, especially when you get into the closing stretch where Daiki kicks out of the Caldera de Luna, the previous finisher for Yoshiki Kato. That's the cutthroat torture rack bomb. And instead, he then Kato points to the sky, does the limit bomb, pins him 1, 2, 3. Ho does not remember TN Revolution whatsoever, and you could actually feel Jay go like, "Come on, man, just help me out just a little bit on this one with it." But Daiki Yanagiuchi, like, this is like the perfect role for him. Like, we've been wanting to have like a young assistant to Paradox. I think he works better in this. I think there's a level of chemistry that you get with him that you don't get with Ryo Fuda or Akihiro Sahara, frankly, because you kind of want to have like the twerpy guy out there, and he works great here. And Kato put on a bunch of muscle. He's doing the bad cop stuff. He's never woken up on the right side of bed. He's just as amazing as he was in January. It's great to see the guy back.
Yeah, it was nice to see Kato hit the ground running here, because one of the points that I was pretty consistently making in December, January, February of this year before he got hurt was Kato had started to figure out how to become a Dragongate wrestler. The thing that I always reference back to is we have a friend of the show who went to Japan. This would have been mid-2023, I think, and was a Dragongate fan, had stopped watching, didn't really know who Kato was, and then he came out and sent me a message and was like, God, this guy wrestles like a Big Japan wrestler. I mean, he's not he doesn't have the any sort of the Dragongate characteristics at all. And right before he got hurt, I feel like he had finally figured out the footwork and the charisma and just the overall presentation of not this cool muscular guy that we like having because he's so different, but a proper Dragongate wrestler. And I felt like he picked up right where he left off there. Thought he looked awesome. It's not a victory lap just yet, but I will point out that I've been begging for them to do something with Daiki Yanagiuchi in a bigger spot, because this is the vision. This is what I think he's very capable of. Is he's not going to stick out like a sore thumb in these matches. This is a guy, I feel comfortable saying it, given everything we just said with Daya. We're never getting Dreamgate Challenger Daiki Yanagiuchi. We also don't need that. He can play his role to perfection. And I thought he did that here. This was the best match of his career. I thought he was utterly phenomenal in this match. I loved him going for the Nagano flash pin, and then I love Kato pinning him with TNR's finisher. Really beautiful piece of storytelling there. Great stuff all around.
Yep, absolutely worth going out of your way for. The best thing on the show, if you weren't thinking about King of Gate stuff, working our way down the rest of the show, there was a lot of kind of stuff that I would say is kind of there in the middle portion of it. You had Gold Class versus Natural Vibes, SMJ. UT Flamita gets the win on Junior with a really ugly flam fly. I thought the match rocked right before that. I thought Junior is going to be very interesting to see as he gets older, because I don't know if necessarily he's going to... I don't think he's going to end up like Daichi Hashimoto, but he does seem like to have like the willingness to get a little chubby, and I think that kind of makes his strikes look even cooler in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to take after his dad's washboard abs, but I also don't really think he needs to.
No, but I really enjoyed this trios match up until like the flam fly that Flamita got really pissed at.
So catch me up to speed, because I'm not on Blue Sky. Is it confirmed? Are they doing Vibes versus Ishin Kai and Kato at Final Gate?
So it has not been officially confirmed, but that does seem to be the immediate direction. Yeah, Jay is on Blue Sky. That's where he's doing kind of his commentary tweaks there. And let me pull up what his exact thing is on the Blue Sky. He says, this is from earlier today. So coming out of Kyoto, we do have a Twin Gate match. We'll talk about that later. But the Z-Brats team already put out the challenge for the Triangle Gate since they were champions when Kato got hurt, but it's not official yet. It probably will get announced. So, sometime this week, I would say. Like,
yeah,
it seems near official.
That makes sense, but that is a bummer. I would have really liked to have seen, because it's Jason and Minoru doing the Twin Gate match. That's Flamita and KZ, and then obviously you've got Vibes, who are the Triangle Gate champions as well. I really wish one of those title matches would have been Vibes versus Gold Class. Now, I would have preferred it be Flamita and KZ versus Rita and Junior, but I would have gladly accepted UT, SMJ, and whoever the third guy is, Shimizu, against Ben, Rita, and Junior. Either of those would have worked for me. I would have preferred the Twin Gate match. I understand why they want to do Z-Brats and Vibes in the Triangle Gate match here, but that's a bit disappointing to me, given how good Gold Class continues to be.
Yeah, and I wonder if the reason why they haven't made the match official is Shimizu being sick.
That's true. I guess I'm holding out hope that they make it a 3-way trios match and they add Gold Class into it, but that feels counterproductive, because this is going to be the Vibes match that if they win, they break the record, right? Yeah, no, they're at 6 defenses. This is 7. Z-Brats is going to win, and it makes sense, but I don't like it that much. And that's a monster Triangle Gate team, so I don't know. They had 3 successful defenses in. They won the belts last year at Final Gate. Ishin Kai and Kato they beat. Do you remember the Triangle Gate team that they beat? Okay. Final Gate last year. Final Gate last year. Was this the Yamato Dragon Kid and Punch Tominaga team? Mike, you're good today. You got Lars Sullivan and you got Punch Tominaga. I would not have gotten that with a gun pointed at my temple. So they beat... You don't have 10/7/2023 circled on your calendar? I don't. I'm sorry we missed the 1-year retrospective podcast on that this year. So we're making bigger plans for next year. Trust me. You'll be okay about that, folks. So yeah, they win the belts at Final Gate, and then they defend them in Korakuen against the old guys in M3K, because this is when Junior was in the UK. And then they defended them against Vibes at Gate of Bayside. And then they defended them against a different Vibes trio at Memorial Gate. And then Kato got hurt and they had to vacate the belt. So they had 3 successful defenses in a month and a week, basically. So yeah, I would expect them to win and then basically redo what they did at the beginning of 2024.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the landscape there, having a team that frankly is approaching 350 kilos is going to be a tough out for any Triangle Gate challengers.
It would be very fun if Zebrats won the belts there. They then tied the record, the defense record, and then had to defend them against that Zebrats trio one more time, and then beat that that Vibes trio one more time, and then beat that Vibes trio for the record.
Just as an aside case, I've been watching UWA 92 as I tend to do during this. I love how the TV for that Roy Lucier has up from El Ídolos del Hoy de Lucha Libre. They will show a lot of different things here. I think that they have this dance hall reception that has had Pandita and Phantasma in tuxedos, and they're giving out trophies here. Okay, it's a wild thing. It's the February 25th, 92. Or February 29th, so Leap Day 92 edition, and the first 10 minutes of this episode is just them in a hotel ballroom.
I like that. That's a good check-in. I have been watching the Chikara 2005 Cibernetico match
that's a good one.
For the entirety of this podcast, and it is still not over. And I was watching this, by the way, Mike, when we were talking about canceled comedians before we started recording.
Yeah.
It is still going.
Yeah, that 2005 match was the one that I think Quack really wanted to see how long he can make it.
Oh, he has done that. It is, and by the way, not bad.
The matches aren't bad. That's the
Milano's in this. Milano's very good. Hero's in this. Hero's very good. Skyda's in this. Grant Akuma has been awesome in this match, but it's still going.
Yeah. I think that between that and the what do they call it? The tag team gauntlet matches, that guy just got so high. The
tag team gauntlet matches sucked. Those were never any good.
Yeah, those are just oh yeah, this is the Hellertown one. Yeah, buddy. We might be done with the show by the time this one's over. I know.
I think this is the longest match on record, I think.
Of a certain match type. Yeah, to my knowledge. Semi-main event on this show, Larry Sweeney defeating one Amigo Suzuki for the ICWA Texarkana TV Championship.
Naturally.
UD06 lives.
This is also the show with the Cheech versus CP Monk match on it, which is not what was that's not the what was the Cabana ripoff they did?
It was Colt Cabani.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is the match where that one UK wrestler stole everyone's wallets backstage, and Larry and Eddie Kingston had to threaten him in the car, of CZW fans lore. This is a lore.
I do not remember that.
Yeah. That was a big thing that Lucky 13 / Retail Dragon was talking about when he would post on that. Remember when we were talking about CZW fans a couple weeks ago? This is one of those lore-filled Chikara shows.
Love it. I vastly would prefer CZW fans' message boards to Effie being the voice of wrestling discourse this week, because I, of course, for many years now, have been on the right side of history about Effie.
I mean, you've been proven right pretty well about that. Elsewhere on this Korakuen Hall show, I mean, you had Kakuta, Tanaka, and Monte versus Fuji, Ultimo, and Owashi. There were a bunch of sumos there, and that Fuji was playing up to that, and that kind of was the joke there. You had Yoshida and Tominaga versus Kanda and Ho-Ho. Ho-Ho got the win with the Ho-Ho roll to end out his 2024, and then the opener again, Hyo and Daiki versus Kamei and Fuda. Kamei got the JFK on Daiki for that. Any other big thoughts on the Korakuen Hall show?
I wrote in my review it'll be up on Voices of Wrestling on Monday, that there's no logical reason for them to do it. There is no time for them to do it. It will never happen. But if Dragongate was going to do a tournament of cool matches, Ryoya Tanaka versus Toru Owashi would be an opening round match, because I thought they had delightful chemistry with one another.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I like those two.
Yeah, very good.
Net positive Toru Iwashi.
It's been an entire year of net positive Toru Iwashi, Mike.
And sadly, we're almost to the end of his full-time career.
It feels like maybe they do something on the Stalker show. It's coming to an end, and they haven't really announced a thing for him.
No, they haven't. And you notice we have not seen, like, Stalker had like 2 more matches of the last series. I wonder if he's going to like do like 3 matches on the 17th, because maybe he was not able to fill them in, or he thinks he only really has it for the 17th.
I would imagine that the Tanahashi match is technically not the last match that he ever wrestles. I was surprised that he wasn't on any of the Hokkaido shows, though, and I kind of chalk that up to, I think maybe his body is just completely ready to fall apart.
As people will see in a piece going up next week, we expect there to be multiple losses that he's going to take against Tanahashi on the 17th. Like, that's just par for the course there. Do we want to touch on Buyuden?
I liked the show. It was very fun. Let me pull up that card here real quick, because it's been a while since I've watched it.
You and Masaoka could fit in if you wanted to.
Yes. Here we go. Okay, so this Buyuden card, this is Buyuden Volume 6. It's up on the network. Yeah. Masuoka, he could come and hang. He would be more than welcome into this promotion. So that's it's, you know what it was? We've kind of figured out this pattern with Buyuden shows where the shows by and large start great and kind of get worse as they go along. Now, I like this main event. I didn't love it. I loved the Ishikawa Shimizu match from earlier in the year, but that was kind of the exception. Normally, the best thing on these shows is whatever the young guys are doing, which in this case, Homari, Daiki Jr., and Fudo were in an opening 6-man tag together. And then you had the return of MMA Rita. And if you haven't seen that, Ito versus Rita, I thought was incredible.
Yeah, Takafumi Ito was Rita's grappling coach before he started wrestling training. Of course, the history of Takumi Hayakawa, it begins with the fact that he knows how small he is, so he decided to become a fighting master before entering pro wrestling. So you got to have a fun teacher-student match. Ito got the RNC on there, and then really, I mean, you got Hanaoka. He was there. He looked as good. My problem with Daisuke Hanaoka is the same thing as always. He is like 20% too sleazy to be around a mainline product, but I really like him.
That's a very good assessment of him.
Yeah. And then King of Freedom tag, Yamato and Sasaki defend against Kai and Ishin. That was fun. Mochizuki and Punch Tominaga going up against Asami Kadaka, and I'm blanking on Nakano's
Takato Nakano.
Takato Nakano. I thought that was like charming, but okay. Like, I'm not a big...
Yeah, it was the Punch Buyuden special at this point.
Yeah, but really, you watch the opener. Gaia Hawks is someone who I did not have a whole lot of stock in when he started hanging around Shima and them, but he's gotten a lot better since then. But it's wild. You know where Jun Masaoka, at least for a long time, used to work?
Where's that?
He was like one of Katoka's main lieutenants in Kiki for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wonder if he still works there.
Yeah, but he was very good. I would like to see more of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, what we have left, I guess. Do you want to talk about Final Gate? Get ourselves some sort of preview going for what we have?
Yeah, let's do it, because I'm out all next week. So when the full Final Gate card comes out, Mike, are you going to do a little bit of solo audio on that?
Yeah, I'll do a little bit of a solo show. I'll talk about I've done some research into Stalker Chikawa that will be in my article, and I'll maybe preview some of it in case it's the thing that I told you that I'll tell a story about Kenji Ishikawa, and I'll do a kind of an update here. But we'll have like our bulk of a Final Gate preview here. I'll pop on. It might be like a shorty solo later on in the week. But we have what I feel like is the lion's share of the card at this point. We have the bulk of it, and I'll be watching Final Gate live. We'll have coverage. Let's see. I think that it's a Sunday show.
It's a Sunday show, but I think that Corkin's on Tuesday.
Right.
So our recording schedule is just going to be a mess for the rest of the year, but we'll figure that out. But I'll be watching it live. I'll have a review shortly after that show, because I'm quite excited for it. But yeah, I think we've covered the Dreamgate match enough. Do you have any other Dreamgate thoughts?
Not really. I'll be interested, like, with the Curse of Fukuoka to see how Daya feels so hot and vibrant. Like, if he's able to bring something out of that very cold building. That's kind of like my last major thought I have about this before I watch that Kyoto match.
Yeah, and then we've got what we assume is the Dragongate match. I would assume that Zebrats are going to win that. Do you agree there?
Yeah, just because of they really put over Kato. Like, he is there's not going to be any easing him back in, where people who've been injury prone in the past, I'm looking in your direction, UT, they get skittish and they basically make them have 6 or 9 months of injury free before they actually start doing something with them. That's not going to be the case for Kato. He's hitting the ground running, and I fully expect Zebrats to be the new champions there.
And Jay brought up a point on commentary that I completely forgot about. He was out with the eye injury in 2023.
Right, yeah.
Because he and Nagano were an awesome big and small tag
Rookie
team.
tag,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it seemed like that really had potential, and then he hurt his eye and was gone 6 months, and then came back and really started figuring stuff out, and then blew out his knee, and now he's back. So I get it. If I was in Dragongate's position and I had a guy like Kato on my roster, which Pro Wrestling Noah could have had, they turned Kato down, I would certainly want to make the most of it as quickly as possible. So I wish it was more gold class focused, but it looks like it's going to be Zebrats being in the match and Zebrats possibly winning, which would make sense. Mike, what about the Twin Gate match?
I really like Fire Time. Flamita in Natural Vibes has been such a big positive for not just a unit that I felt like after SMJ took over didn't really do anything to delineate themselves between the KZ regime. Now we have seen virtually 6 months post that his leadership, and I think that the big underlying thing you look at is Flamita back in Dragongate and how great he's been with Natural Vibes. Mino Lee getting this match kind of a little bit out of nowhere makes me wonder if they're going to try to do a switch, especially with I don't think Flamita sticks around after this show because they usually send foreigners home before Christmas. So
Final Gate's earlier this year than it usually is. So I would assume, and I'll try to figure this out, and I'll let you know if I hear anything, so you can add it into your solo audio. I would assume he works this show and then the Korakuen and then goes home.
Yeah. So I don't know if that kind of weighs into who you think wins with it. I loved Minoru and Jason Lee as a tag team, so I'm really up for this match. It seems like it's kind of early for KZ and Flamita, but we also are coming off of a big title run from Not Hug too. So I feel like that this is kind of my coin flip match on the show. I could see it go. I see the argument for Natural Vibes and the argument for Zebrats.
I think they're going to run heavy with Zebrats on this show. I think they want to start the year with a bunch of heat and line up, your baby faces for Champion Gate. And then we'll see when King of Gate is in 2025. And, before you know it, we'll be talking about World again. I think they're going to load up on heels over on this show. And I do not think Flamita will be able to check his bag with that Twin Gate title when he heads home to Mexico for Christmas, assuming he does, because, Monte, by and large, has stuck around. Maybe this time Flamita stays through Christmas. They've got 2 more Kobe Sambo Hall shows this year, so there is a possibility that he does stick around, but I would assume that Zebrats go over in this match.
Yeah, and you brought the idea of Zebrats standing tall. They have found a way to do that without doing their least favorite thing, which is having a bad end to Final Gate. They don't like heels holding everything at Final Gate. You get them to 20 in the triangle, there's a babyface versus babyface title match up top. You're okay there. So I feel like that you've moved me now into strongly towards Mino Lee winning that match.
And then it sets up, okay, well, we've got this title, we don't
Ray
have
House, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't have the Dreamgate champion. We don't have the Dreamgate championship. Insert Shun Skywalker as a challenger at some point. They don't have the Bravegate belt, but
Hamare.
There you go. Okay, that answers that. 'Cause I was gonna say with Jason being as big as he is and Ishin being as big as he is, who could do that? But you've got Hamare, and I think it's a very safe bet that by the end of January, Hamare is your Open the Bravegate champion.
Yeah, Hamare, 75 kilos. I checked before we did the showcase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that seems to be the move. That would be, I think, far and away my odds-on favorite. If they vacate the Bravegate belt in January and do a tournament, I think it would have to go to him.
And that is, of course, if Hamare escapes Final Gate, because we have a special tag team match. Shun Skywalker and Hamare versus Pro Wrestling Noah's Naomichi Marufuji and Takashi Sugiura.
I swear to God, Mike, I was thinking last week when we did not do a show, I had a moment of time. This was before Corcus. It was last weekend. And I said, let me look at what Pro Wrestling Noah has done recently. Maybe I'll catch up on Noah. And I started looking at these cards, and they all looked dire. And I had the thought in my mind that, you know what? I simply can't care about Takashi Sugiura anymore. And then they announced this match, and let me tell you, I am so into it. That is a real thought that I had last week of, I am just done caring about Sugiura. He has no more interesting matches. He has no more interesting wrinkles in his matches. I'm out. I love the guy, but I'm out. Wrong. I am so into this match.
Yeah, and I think that you have Shun, like, he's been off of shows. I don't expect to hear him getting pulled from this. Like, that just seems to be...
No, they announced it after Korakuen, so I would assume that they took him off Korakuen for precautionary reasons, but I would think he's back now.
Yeah. I just really adore how they've been treating Hamare. It's so much fun to see him kind of get this kind of not rookie treatment, but also being treated like a rookie, and that's going to be a blast. There's a big rumor going around about that Noah the New Year show.
What, that it's gonna suck?
Well, you know that Jack Morris has an X going for the GHC tag team titles.
Well, who's he gonna team with? Brian Kendrick?
Oh, the rumor is Shun that I've heard.
Oh, I don't want that.
Yeah, neither did I. I just didn't know if you had that. Bad. I just didn't know if you heard that rumor or not.
No, I was actually I was with a friend of the show at a Chicago Bulls game last night, and as we were driving home, he was telling me that he just looked at that Noah card for the show on the first and couldn't believe how bad it was. And then I pulled up and went, "Oh my God, this is really bad. I really don't want to see this." And the conversation was a little bit like what we had with Daya and Yamato with the Kano Kenta match, where I think everything that Kano does well might come across super corny when he does it against the guy that he's been cosplaying as.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a fair thing, and and Ozawa just,
no, it's awful. It is awful. I really want people to think about. So it looks like they're going to lose Dr. Wagner 3 and Galeno Del Mal. Is that right? That both those guys look like they're on their way out?
Yeah, which is a shame because Galeno did the big switch over this year.
And then got nothing out of it.
I mean, arguably, would you rather be doing nothing in Noah or in Glade?
He could have been Glade World Champion.
Do you think that they would have booked him that way, Case?
I actually do, because he was kind of over in Glade when no one's over.
Yeah, but Shima's not going to deviate away from what that, and they had him get his ass kicked by Hayata Tamura in not a very good match.
No, that's true. So again, chicken and egg. I don't know which one's worse there, but you're okay. So let's say they're gonna lose Galeno and they're gonna lose Dr. Wagner 3.
Yeah.
Imagine if, and I don't know what their contractual situation is, but if I was running a wrestling company, I would certainly be paying attention to Alpha Wolf and Dragon Bane and looking at the year they had and trying to bring them into my wrestling company, whether I be based in America, Japan, or Mexico. Imagine Noah if they're going to lose the Wagners and then they lose Alpha Wolf and Dragon Bane, how dire that roster is going to look.
Oh, at that point, you're just like, why are you allowing Osawa book if his one big thing is that he knows Lucha Libre and can get people in there, and you lose those two sets of brothers, and especially considering that Alpha Bane and or Alpha Wolf and Dragon Bane finally got over their bad rep.
Exactly. No, they're legitimately great wrestlers now. It's really nice to see. Let me end with this, Mike, because there's Hyo versus freaking Jiro on the card. I don't care.
Infuriating charisma fest. Yeah.
It's whatever. It's fine. It's going to be very bad. It's going to make me fall asleep in the morning when I'm watching the show. Is there anything else on Final Gate?
Nothing else that's announced. I did have a little note that I wanted to get your thoughts about real quick.
Okay, good. Hold that thought for 1 second. I've got this last note on Noah. I wanted to put this in the Noah channel on the Discord, but I didn't know how to type it without sounding like oh, look at me kind of main character style. I have a Noah scoop that is a real scoop, Mike.
Okay, what is it?
Eita is getting new entrance music in Pro Wrestling Noah.
Oh, they're finally not paying Pete Clausen.
What's his current song? Who's Pete Clausen?
Oh, he's the guy who did Overdrive the Mirage, the song that Eita's had for 12 years. Yeah.
So this was relevant. Eita's getting new theme music.
Mm-hmm.
When Eita gets new theme music, somebody please ping me, DM me, contact me. I will tell you the story behind Eita's new theme music.
Okay, I am really intrigued by it.
It's not juicy, it's not scandalous. It is hilarious, the story behind Eita's new music. When he does it, somebody contact me, I'll tell the story.
Fair. Okay, my last thing, and it kind of plays into, we've stepped out of the mother company. Cubs fan had a really interesting write-up about the downfall of Big Lucha.
Yeah,
Big Lucha is no more. Psycho Clown bought the premises. He's going to launch his own vanity promotion there. Apparently, BGI is just going to exist. Like, that's an interesting thing. Big Lucha felt like for a time period, like the big thing was Bandito wanted to replicate Dragongate, and then other people got involved, and kind of Bandito stopped being involved. Flamita wasn't really involved at one point and stopped being involved, and it kind of turned out to be this guy and his son's vanity promotion. Do you what were your big kind of takeaways of this happening? Because it did seem like Big Lucha could have filled a void or been a landing spot. I mean, Glake tried to use it as one, and it just kind of drifts away as another failed Mexican mid-range indie.
If you didn't watch the really good era of Big Lucha in real time, which was 2020 and 2021, it is imperative to know that their version of becoming Mexican Dragon Gate was a version that they were very slowly succeeding with. And it's the reason I got into contemporary lucha, and the reason that I'm now as into CMLL as I am. My gateway through all of that was watching these big lucha shows and watching Bandito look like a god in front of this crowd, and watching Demonic Flamita. And then, if you remember when Kento and Takuma and Estrella first went to Mexico, I think the second show they did was a big lucha show. And I thought it was so great because I was like, oh, what an obvious landing spot. There's, even though there's a weird Glate Big Lucha thing, Dragon Gate knows Bandito, and it seems like Flamita is Switzerland in this whole thing. Like, they can land there and just work all of these big lucha shows, and they'll fit right in. And then that didn't happen. And then the image of Big Lucha changed more and more and more. And then it really, it died with a whimper, which is a real bummer. But it was a promotion that for a very short time felt cool and felt hip and felt way different than anything else happening in Mexico. And, the bummer for somebody like me who was really into lucha right now is AAA is unwatchable. There is nothing good, or at least nobody is reporting anything good coming out of IWRG. I'm not a Zona guy. The Crash has never been less relevant. And now we lost Big Lucha. So while CMLL continues to be this great, great promotion, second only to Dragon Gate in 2024, the Lucha Indies suck right now. And that's a bummer, because there's nothing I like more than, getting a series of tweets from Cubs or Rob Viper of, hey, these guys are, 18-year-old street performers. They were just found on the street. Now they're doing lucha. Look at how much fun they are. And it doesn't seem like we have any of that. And Big Lucha, for a very short time, seemed like a place that could have housed that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it seems like that generation that kind of came up from Big Lucha, like that original core of Black Generation, a lot of the talented ones have already ended up in CMLL.
Mm-hmm. Utani is the big one there, and he pretty consistently works on those Guadalajara shows, and I wish they would do more with him, because I think he has the talent to.
Yeah, but you also have Elemental, and Axial and Jackson ended up ranking pretty high in the bodybuilding contest last week.
Oh, good for him. That tracks. He is a more muscular than he is a good wrestler, so that makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, no, losing this, and I think that when one looks at the end, I don't pretend to be any sort of expert or pretending to be an expert with Mexico. I find it so interesting that really over the run of it, especially the last 40 years, it seems to be like the exact inverse of the United States, where everyone really wants to see like a third major or semi-major promotion pop up in Mexico. It just does not happen, and if it does, it dies out so quick and usually with a whimper. And Big Lucha was doing things different, as you laid out there, and that contrasts with the United States, where there's just too many promotions, and I would like some of them to die off in a whimper.
Same with Japan. Too many promotions right now. It's funny. We're compiling notes for what is going to be our next rewind and rewatch project, which I'm not going to say what it is until we unveil the first episode, but it is a lengthy project, and I'm going through some observers right now from a different era in Japanese wrestling, and it's funny that Dave in almost every issue is like, there's just too many promotions in Japan. This is not sustainable. And there are so many more promotions now than there were then. Like nobody learned that lesson. And unfortunately, Dave was right.
Yeah. I'm looking right now at a stack of DVDs that I need to rip and get to you now. No
hurry. We're going to do in January. We're going to do the 20th anniversary of the January 14th, 2005 Korakuen show where Blood Generation forms.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it's an open book, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. We owe everybody one more rewind and rewatch for the 25th anniversary of the Dragon System. We'll get to that before the end of the month. We'll do a bonus one in January, and then we'll see where that takes us afterwards. I also want to note, I cackled reading that Cubs update on Big Lucha, where he was explaining that Bandito's idea was that the gym would be like a Japanese dojo where people could stay there for free. And Psycho Clown took over and immediately said, I am charging you rent. Either move or start paying me.
Hey, yeah. I mean, Bandito was real committed to it. Others just were like, why are you here? Like,
I know.
Pay me.
I remain... And it's tough. I wish Bandito had come into AEW in a different era than he did.
Yeah.
I remain incredibly bullish on the idea that Bandito can be if your first tier of stars is Jon Moxley, Hangman Page, Swerve Strickland, that Bandito can be a second tier star in a major American wrestling company. And that is not because I think he is a great wrestler. I just think he has a charisma. I've seen it in person now. He has a charisma that is quite unbelievable to witness. And if they don't screw that up, they really have something with him.
Yeah, no. And I feel like as soon as he was able to show in Ring of Honor, the kind of charisma, like it was just very clear. It's like, well, you give this guy an opportunity and he'll just be off to the races.
2020 Ring of Honor is a real interesting what if. The Marty Scurll booked Ring of Honor that had legitimate cash flow coming in from Sinclair. I mean, they wanted to make that the third head in a three-headed dragon American wrestling promotion landscape. And that is one of the real COVID game changers of like, oh yeah, no, Ring of Honor was going to be largely Mexican talent based, and Scurll, who I do not like, had a lot of interesting ideas, and that all got wiped away.
2020 was what a time.
What a time. I do not miss it.
No. But if you do want to see what we created over 2020, 2021, did we have rewind and rewatch going into 2022?
No, because you got to remember, we were doing the Dragongate USA stuff weekly. So that we finished that. There were 50 Dragongate USA shows. So I think we started April of 2020 and finished April of 2021. And then from there, we started doing some Speedstar, Masato Yoshino retrospectives. And then like 2022, was the Kness retirement and some shows like that. And then 2023 was so busy with all the Dragongate footage we had because of the YouTube uploads that we didn't really do a lot of classic content until the start of this year again.
Yeah, but if you're interested in that time period, especially looking for evergreen content, and especially it's all up on YouTube, Case has also a fantastic spreadsheet that he has put together, all 75 episodes that we have done of this side series. If you check on our social media accounts, there are posts there. And again, I mean, we trace every single episode of Dragongate USA and then talk about the fallout, Masato Yoshino's retirement, and then we have kind of picked and choose since then. So go check that out there. But Case, I think that's going to do it for us this weekend.
I think that's it. I'll talk to everybody when we talk about Final Gate next time.
Yep, we will be back sometime this next week for a Final Gate updates, maybe some Ichikawa stories from me, but we'll be back with y'all really after Final Gate. We'll figure out how we're going to do with that in the Korakuen. That's coming right after that. But you can follow us on social media at Open VoiceGate. Case is at _ in your case on Twitter. I'm at Fujiheya. Thanks for listening to Open VoiceGate. We'll be back with you next time. Take care.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are the co-hosts of Jumping Bomb Audio, the #1 show all about the world of Joshi Pro Wrestling. Episodes drop every other Monday, where we discuss the biggest Joshi news, review shows, and preview the hottest upcoming Joshi action.
So whether you're a new fan or an old fan, we've got something here for you at Jumping Bomb Audio.
Check us out on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
How do you feel when you switch to Geico and save on your car insurance? It's like going to work on one Thursday morning and thinking to yourself, just one more day until Friday. But then somebody in the elevator says, Happy Friday! Then you check your phone quickly and discover today is actually Friday. So yes, Happy Friday, random stranger in the elevator. Happy Friday indeed. Yep, switching and saving with Geico feels just like that. Get more with Geico.